And good afternoon to the rest of you in the country. We're going to go ahead and begin the webinar now. This is Huawei's webinar on enabling your campus of the future with today's budget, a very hot topic for those of you in the education space. So a few pieces of housekeeping before we go ahead and get started. The first is we're going to be accepting questions throughout the webinar. So if you go to your GoToWebinar panel, there's a Q&A section on that panel. Please keep your questions coming. We will take them at the end, but we'll also try to answer them in real time throughout the presentation. So as you hear something that you have a question about, please enter it in, and we'll go ahead and respond to that. In addition, we're going to be having some polling questions throughout this webinar. So at various times throughout the webinar, we're going to put up a polling question, and we strongly encourage you to respond to that. We will share the results with everybody in the audience so you can see what your peers are thinking about on some of these kinds of issues. It's often kind of interesting to see the perspectives of the people in the audience. And then at the end, we will have a Q&A session where we answer your questions and give you some direction on how you can get further follow-up and further questions. At this point, I'd like to make a couple of introductions. Leading the presentation is going to be Thomas Keenan, who's the Director of Integrated Marketing and one of the real gurus here at Huawei, who's going to be able to lead you through the various solutions that Huawei offers the education market. And we're also very lucky to have Michaelis Bletsis from the MIT Media Lab. He's a customer who's been partnering with Huawei for his educational IT needs. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Thomas.
Nick, thank you very much, and thank all of you who are online for attending this webinar from Huawei. Let me quickly put up then the agenda for today. In the next hour, we'll be covering the three major areas. I'd like to start by grounding everyone in a little background on what's going on in information and communication technologies and the trends they're about. And also for some of you who may know us perhaps a little bit more, a little bit less, exactly who is Huawei and what do we do, what value do we think we can provide at the end of the day for your either K through 12, university, whatever level of education you are currently serving IT needs. Secondly, we'll then get into the campus of the future. What are the care about that CIOs are thinking about today, and what keeps them up at night? Well, how are they thinking that they're going to enable tomorrow's campus? And then we'll do a little bit of a deep dive on a topic that we could probably do a whole hour in itself, and maybe we will as a follow-up, as a matter of fact, on bring your own device and bring your own device solutions. What's that space all about? And what should I be thinking about? At the end of the day, it's not a matter of if BYOD is going to come into the industry. It is happening across all segments, across all verticals. What do you need to be thinking about in order to prepare from a network perspective? And then finally, as Nick so kindly mentioned, we will get into our case study with the MIT Media Lab. So let me get started here. Let's take a quick kind of a background or a level set for all of us from an ICT or information and communication technologies perspective. At the end of the day, the word or the watchword for this area is that IT or information technology and consumer technologies have been and continue to converge. And since about 2009, we've really seen an acceleration of items which were typically totally separate from an information technology and a communication technology rapidly becoming one. So client processing, data terminals, the server and client model has quickly merged with what we typically see as consumer technologies. And what we see is more and more of our employees, of our staff, of perhaps our students, bringing more and more of that type of technology into what typically has been the IT world. And it's being driven by three major trends in 2013 and beyond, or the rapid adoption by consumers of technology that had more of its background in the enterprise IT world. Number two, the promise of cloud, and I'm sure that's a separate topic that a lot of you have been hearing about, both public, private, and hybrid, and how a university system or K through 12 can take advantage of that by moving certain assets to the cloud and the economic gains that one can see. That's also accelerating this trend. And then finally, at the end of the day, the larger and larger percentage of our population in any vertical that has become mobile and is carrying mobile devices of various types. And in our BYOD section, I'll go over some of those interesting statistics from the area where, as a matter of fact, there are now more tablets and phones that are being purchased these days than PCs. It has not been typically the truth, but now has turned out to be the way that the industry is going. So who is Huawei? And let me give you a snapshot of exactly the Huawei business model and where we've been investing. So we are a global ICT solutions provider. We had a 2012 revenue right around $35.4 billion. And we do serve 45 of the world's top 50 telecoms. And that point is important because we really have bulletproofed of a lot of our solutions that we now roll out in different markets in the SP space. These people are known to be highly critical of initial solutions, to be totally frank, and really demand that you bulletproof your solutions to serve their needs. And we really have prospered by our legacy there in order to roll them out in the enterprise and consumer spaces. We do have over 150,000 global employees with a high percentage of them in R&D. And I'll talk in a couple of slides how we are a top contributor to industry standards and have been recognized by multiple forums for our contributions. A little bit about us in the USA. We originally established, some of you may be familiar with our service provider presence down in Plano. We started that initially in 2001, and that office is still up and booming. And Santa Clara, California, the R&D facility opened in 2011. We do have enterprise business offices in all those major cities I am listing: Boston, New York, Plano, and Los Angeles, among many others. And interestingly enough, our investment in the U.S. has been extremely high. We granted OEM contracts in our most recent year that we're tracking it, 2012, of over $6 billion to U.S.-based companies. So very much based here, very much investing in the economy, and looking forward to a bright future in the United States. We also do, for those who are interested, provide not just a full portfolio of products and solutions, but also the learning, technical, and professional services that U.S. customers demand to back up those solutions. So a highlight on our continuous investment in innovation, as I mentioned, been recognized by the Broadband World Forum and the IEEE for aiding advances in technology, and also by Fast Company magazine in 2012 for corporate use of innovation internally. We do have membership in actually over 150 international standards bodies now, and we have 180 positions on international standards organizations' leadership councils. As I can also show here in the bottom right hand of the slide, we do have an enormous number of patents that are either pending or that have been granted both overseas and in the United States. So at the end of the day, what can I net it out for you as being Huawei's enterprise value proposition to the education community? Number one, as I mentioned, I think it's incredibly important that in the carrier space, we do operate in 45 of those 50 carriers, of those service providers in the world, and they choose Huawei for the most demanding networks. And SP testing enables a more robust enterprise solution. Point number two, I have a very strong partner ecosystem with tested and interoperable solutions. And so when you select a system or solution from Huawei, you are also buying the extended ecosystem that we already work with. I've also mentioned that we lead the way with open standards in a number of the most important industry and standards forums that there are. And we do have a product breadth and depth for comprehensive ICT needs, and I will get into some of those solutions in my next section directly after my polling questions. And then finally, we've been recognized for a very strong ability to execute in the Gartner Magic Quadrant in 2012. Gartner yearly puts out a variety of Magic Quadrants that hopefully some of you have seen, in which they test whether a vendor is niche, whether they are mainstream, and also whether they have the ability to execute in either a limited way or an extended way. And Gartner found us in 2012 to have a very strong ability to execute, and that's a very important point for any educational institution considering a solution from Huawei. So at this point, Nick, I think we'll be going to our first polling question.
Excellent, excellent. It does sound like a great time for a polling question, so let's go ahead and present that. This first polling question, we're about to get into some of the conversations that Thomas and the team have every day with various customers and partners, and we're trying to figure out what keeps you guys up at night. So you can select all that apply, so multiple selections are allowed here. We want to know, are you really fighting with the fact that you have expanding needs and a decreasing budget? Is the biggest issue that you're trying to, you're being asked to drive technology innovation? Is security a big issue for you? Are you trying to connect with other campuses and universities? So please, all that apply, we'll give you about a minute here to go ahead and make selections, and then we'll close the poll out. Hopefully everybody has a much better feeling of what Huawei's presence is in the overall market. It's interesting as a company that's really known globally and a huge player in the industry. So let's go ahead and just allow another 10 seconds or so for people to get their final choices in, and we'll see what you guys selected. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close the poll out. I do want to share the results with everybody, and what's interesting is you can see that the two top choices are this need to keep expanding your environment with a decreasing budget while at the same time driving technology innovation, handling things like BYOD, distance learning, etc. Security is still a big issue, and a few other things there. So that's varying results, and we appreciate everybody's participation in the poll. And this is going to lead us right into Thomas's next section that he's going to talk about. So let's go ahead and switch it back over to Thomas.
So thank you, Nick. And as a matter of fact, what I find interesting is that this first poll lines up very much with the CIO concerns and carots that I hear about whether I go to an EDUCAUSE trade show in Denver in November, as I did, or I travel to many campuses that I have. Your thoughts line up precisely with what I'm seeing so far, and I'll cover that in the next few slides. But again, second section of this webinar talks about campus of the future, what I'm doing to help enable that for the education space, and also a little bit of a deep dive into BYOD. What's that all about, and why should I be concerned about it? I know it's coming. How do I prepare? So let's get started here. I probably couldn't have asked for a better straight man than poll number one. In my opinion, education CIOs are some of my CIOs that are under the most pressure from a couple of stakeholder and, quite frankly, just industry perspective that I talk to on a daily basis. Number one, there's a group of issue concerns that can be cataloged under be risk averse. Those are the legacy concerns about security of my networks, the speed of technology adoption, and that ever shrinking budget that I seem to have on one hand, with a group of stakeholders, whether that be university partners, the education board, teachers, students, and researchers, that really want me as a CIO to be on the forefront, to make my university or my K-12 institution or my high school stand out by leading and differentiating in the future of education with the new types of topics really that are enabling the education campus, whether that be BYOD, software-defined networking, right? Other types of technologies that are top of mind for a lot of folks, and they really want the university to stand out in their adoption in a very economical way, and become, if you would, the poster child for some of these technologies. So very much two trends pulling me in opposite directions. Another way to look at it really is that my CIO care-abouts end up in three overall buckets. Number one, strategic issues. I need a single strategy to optimize the efficiency of my IT assets. I also need to continuously innovate for new services that my faculty, my researchers, my students want to see available on campus. Number two, I want to maximize on the IT investment that I do put out. I want to be able to very efficiently measure what has changed and what have I gotten out of the IT investment, or be able to report back up to the board. I want to make sure that I'm also extremely familiar with new emerging trends like cloud services, and what piece of my IT spend or my IT issues can be moved to the cloud and make the rest of my budget on campus much more efficient. And then finally, technologically, I really need to stay on top of trends like BYOD, like distance education, and like IT consumerization to understand the impact that will have on the campus of the future. So here are some key questions that you really need to be asking yourself when you think about the integrated campus of tomorrow. Number one, will all of your IT services happen with your own IT environment? Do you truly plan to control all your IT services, or is there a plan that you should be thinking about to take a certain piece of those and move them either to the cloud, a third provider, or a third party of some type? Mobility, can you identify who won't be mobile in your education environment? If you truly can't, you should probably plan that at some point most of your stakeholders will be mobile in some way, shape, or form, and you need to provide connectivity and security to those stakeholders, right, as the campus progresses to the future. And then finally, can you truly afford dedicated hardware and software for every person in every environment all the time? or should you be thinking about virtualizing at least a piece of those assets and to understand what it takes to get there? Okay, at this point, Nick, I believe we are ready for polling question number 2.
Okay, fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and launch it. This polling question has to do with your adoption of BYOD, and what we want to know is how far along are you in support of BYOD? Do you not support it at all? Are you just beginning to support it, so within the last year you've really started to embrace it? Are you kind of in a medium level where you've been doing it for a couple of years, or are you what we would call an advanced BYOD supporter where you're actually teaching the other guys how to do it and you've been doing it for 4+ years? So let's just give a minute or so here to see what responses are coming in. As Thomas said, it's really not a matter of if you're going to support it, but basically when and how, because there's really no at this. Go ahead just for another couple seconds before we close it out, give everybody a chance to vote here. Kind of makes it interesting to see what your peers are doing. We're going to go ahead and close the poll and then show you guys the results. And what we can see is it's fairly equally spread. More than half of you either don't support it or you've been supporting it for less than a year, and somewhere a little over 40% have been doing it for a few years to a bit longer. So it's a fairly even spread there, which isn't too surprising right now. So it's definitely interesting to see this audience and kind of how you guys stack up in terms of your support with BYOD. So Thomas, let's go ahead and take it forward.
Really appreciate that, Nick. And as a matter of fact, I think to the point of the poll, BYOD is something that we'll delve into in a few slides, but it's definitely a trend you want to be keeping your eye on. It's something that will be driven by your users, and you want to be ready for it. This is a slide that I showed actually at EDUCAUSE to kind of net out at the end of the day where we see Huawei's education solutions vision going. 3 major components of that solutions vision. Number 1, we do have a variety of focused solutions for the next generation learning environment, and I'll talk about some of that in my product section and solutions section that follows this. We do very much understand that the CIO needs to balance cost efficiency with valuable new service deployment to be seen as a hero across the campus and to be seen as a leader, to be seen as an individual that other CIOs in education reach out to for answers and become, in essence, a thought leader across the industry. And then finally, I think you want to go with a vendor that has global best practices that you as an education person can leverage. And so what I mean by that is going with a vendor such as Huawei with its ICT experience, the convergence of enterprise, carrier, and consumer technologies that I have deployed in other K-12 and university environments, as well as PhD and master's programs. I can point to, for example, many implementations in Europe in the major universities that I can follow up with some case study examples of. And then finally, in Asia, one standout example is the fact we do run the largest education and research consortium in the world, and that is CERN, that is based in China and actually has extensions throughout all of Asia. And so a major implementation of ICT technology in that space that we'd be glad to follow up with some details on. Harkening back then to my three-pillar slide of a few ago, strategic items. Then again, at the end of the day, Huawei truly understands the ICT conversion space. On the economical side, I have products such as Cloud Engine Data Center and my storage solutions that I'll talk about in a few slides. They can help optimize the economics of your data center and help in the economical rollouts of those technologies. And then finally, 10 gigabit campus solutions and unified communications solutions from a UC and a video conferencing and telepresence perspective that can provide key solutions in that last pillar. And then finally, I have an ecosystem, joint innovation, and partner community that is second to none that really will help partner with you. And in essence, in your rollout, you'll realize you'll be able to leverage the global best practices that all these partners have over time as well. Let me turn then to just a quick snapshot of some of the particular technologies that we have that I can showcase for your campus implementations. Number 1, I do have a full suite of switching solutions, both from an access, aggregation, and core perspective. My S5700 switch provides 1 gig to 10 gig access and S1700 provides my 10 gig access. Aggregation is covered by the S6700 10 gig aggregation switch as well as the S7700 switch. And then finally, my terabit routing switch 9700 helps provide a very secure core. All these solutions were actually showcased at the last two interops. If any of the audience was actually able to make that, that particular show, we actually ran in the background the entire network that provided connectivity for all show goers, users, and the classrooms from a wired and wireless perspective. And so all these, most of these solutions, were showcased in some way, shape, or form. I came back. Sorry for that delay. Let me move on to the storage product portfolio. From a SAN and a SSD and NAS perspective, there is no one-size-fits-all for any of my individual users. Universities come to me all the time with the massive amounts of information that are being stored on student records. The need to participate in things like quite frankly, the Human Genome Project, which was largely pushed out of the university area, and the huge numbers of petabytes of information that such projects spin up. And then finally, there are other huge data sets of consumer behavior, financial market data, et cetera, that universities tend to store. And these won't occur in one form factor, so I'm happy to report that whether you have a SAN, a NAS, file system, or a solid-state environment, I'm able to support actually all three of those for you. Video and telepresence solution highlights is the next area I'm covering. It's very important for us to understand from a Huawei's perspective that we get the university and quite frankly the K through 12 increasingly has massively open and online courses, and those often occur from a distance. So the ability to support this distance learning is extremely key to your environment. And Huawei provides an entire platform solution for that, whether it be the desktop and the endpoints from a video conferencing and telepresence perspective, or secure and reliable service management platform to help secure those transmissions. And then finally, wireless LAN product portfolio. We do have three main columns underneath the solution. We provide intelligent coverage, both indoor and outdoor deployment options, intelligent control from a user group, user level policy, and secure rate limiting perspective that allows both secure wired and wireless authentication. As we understand, you have a variety of different types of stakeholders that need to log into your network. And then to control all of this and make the network management of all of this more efficient and lower your OpEx, we have integrated wired and wireless network management system under one network management platform, eSite, to control all the platforms under our wireless LAN product portfolio. So at this point, Nick, I think we're going to our third and final polling question, and I'll let you take it away.
Thanks, Thomas. Wow, that was a great round trip through the Huawei product portfolio, and it is a vast portfolio, so I appreciate you being able to cover all of that in such a short time. And we will have many follow-on webinars where we dive deeply into the various solutions that Thomas just skimmed over. But at this point, what we want to find out from you is currently what is your greatest area of need? Is it more in the switching and routing area? Is it more storage related? Is it wireless, which would cover both LTE and Wi-Fi? Is it servers or telepresence? And I think what you'll find here is that Huawei offers all of these solutions. It's a unique capability and a unique portfolio to be able to provide this breadth of coverage. So it's interesting just to get a feel for where your most biggest area of need is currently. So we'll let that go for a few seconds here, and then we'll show you guys the results. Okay, a few more seconds, and we'll go ahead and close it out and share the results with everybody. And what you can see is that the switching and routing and the wireless seem to be the two largest areas right now, and servers kind of popping in there with 25% as well. So that's just interesting feedback from the audience. We appreciate your participation as always. And I do want to mention one more time, Please feel free to keep the questions coming. We know we've been receiving quite a few questions, so keep them coming. We'll definitely address many of those at the end of the session. So with that in mind, and that was our final polling question, we'll turn it over to Thomas once again.
Thank you, Nick. And let me start then on my final section before we go to the MIT Media Lab. Before I talk about the present status of the mobile office from a challenges perspective, let me give the audience a little bit of background on what's going on in the new mobile era. Some of these statistics, quite frankly, are extremely surprising to a lot of folks. But worldwide, there are now 1.2 billion mobile employees in all of phases of corporate life, and that includes all verticals, including education. 35% of all workforces use mobile devices regularly, and that's a worldwide number again, so there are definitely countries where that number is even higher than that. And then finally, slightly lower, 70% of the worldwide workforce uses BYOD, and again, there are definitely countries where that number is much higher. The other interesting statistic is that at this point, smartphone and tablet shipments have now bypassed or surpassed, personal computer shipments for the first time. And we expect that in 2013 and beyond, that divergence will continue. So about 420 million users last year of personal computers and about 430 of mobile devices and tablets. And that hopefully is a wake-up call to a lot of you who are wondering again about this whole BYOD thing and how soon is it going to come? It's coming awfully soon. The present status of the mobile office slide shows then some of the challenges that I will face across my network on the mobile office and implementing my BYOD strategy. Number one, 47% of enterprises, and I happen to include, for the purposes of this webinar, the education space in that segment. 47% of those have sensitive data on mobile devices, and yet 90 million smart devices were lost or stolen alone in 2012. Obviously, sobering statistics there. 44% of mobile devices have suffered DDoS attacks, denial of service attacks, and 54% of wireless networks have security risks. So at the same time I might have sensitive university information on a particular device, I have users who are much more mobile today that are going through networks that very often have security risks, something I need to take into account when I pull together my BYOD strategy. From a complexity point of view, my management platforms stand out. There are more than 20 mainstream mobile device vendors. Ask yourself, okay, so why should I care about that? And the reason you should care is the more mobile device vendor and mainstream OSs there are, the more that your staff, who is going to be writing to these devices and controlling them, has to understand and be able to manage. And then finally, from an application perspective, be aware that all the classic applications that you have on your network, you probably want to eventually to have in some way, shape, or form on your mobile device, whether that be a ERP application, whatever application that you currently have in your old legacy world, you want to have a new mobile device, and you want to be able to port those very elegantly into the mobile device with very little problem. And so a secure mobile solution then, if I had to net it out, what should I look for a vendor? The check marks that I ought to be able to put against their network solution in order to be assured that I'll be able to roll out BYOD and mobility in a very efficient way. Number one, I need an end-to-end mobile security strategy from that vendor. I need to be able to have a security policy that extends across the entire network, providing an absolutely secure network connection. Number two, mobile device management security. I need to be able to have both my personal applications and my university applications coexist on the same device. And what I mean by that is if I had an administrator, a student, a researcher who brings their personal device and has access to university applications on a device, I need to be able to sandbox that particular device and be able to have both of those applications not interfere or relate to each other. I need to have environment-aware mobile policy. I need to understand where is my user, what's their role, and what kind of permissions am I giving them? What type of terminal type do they have? What location do they inhabit? And what types of applications am I going to give them access to? And then finally, I need to have secure applications in the mobile office. I need to be able to very elegantly and quickly move my secure legacy applications into the mobile office world and not spend a lot of my OpEx or my CapEx money doing that. So let me quickly go over each one of those 4 points. when I'm talking about end-to-end mobile network security, I'm talking about three major endpoints. So if I'm outside the university or the K through 12 trying to get in, as a vendor, Huawei needs to be able to provide you, or any vendor needs to be able to provide you the capability to provide end-to-end VPN encryption and data encryption inside applications to prevent eavesdropping from hackers. Number two, if someone happens to bring an access point, a personal access point up on the education network, I need to be able to identify that application, that access point, and to make sure that it does not have any rogue apps that will affect others on the university network. And then finally, at the DMARC to the intranet, I need to be able to control and defend against hackers, viruses, and Trojan infections that may be inadvertently brought upon my network by my university employees. Item number two, and I mentioned this once before, I need to be able to create on any personal device a sandbox in which my university applications run, and at the point that we log up, we actually wipe the data from that particular terminal to ensure that no sensitive university information is left upon a personal device. I need to be able to, again, provide environment-aware mobile policy, and that includes understanding the areas on the campus, the types of users that can access those areas, and what permissions I will give them in those particular areas. So for example, if a researcher is in a highly confidential lab environment, I need to understand the location where he is, what types of permissions I will give him when he is in that particular lab area. What if he moves to perhaps a cafeteria, how I change those permissions so that sensitive data, research data, does not move out into that device where it could be viewed by people who are not authorized. Also, if that particular user leaves the campus, goes to a coffee shop, an airport, a hotel, I need to be able to apply policies that limit stringently the amount of information that they can access from that perspective. And then finally, secure applications in the mobile office. I need to be able to very efficiently secure development and deployment of all my classical applications that run my K through 12, my university, my education space, and be able to port those very efficiently to mobile world. And at the end of the day, ask your network vendor, are they able to provide these four key pillars of any secure mobile solution? The answer to each one of these, or you should be looking potentially for another partner. And I'm happy to report from a solution perspective, Huawei provides each and every one of these key and classic criteria. So again, in closing here, from a terminal security, network security, policy, and secure application perspective, as I've mentioned, Huawei is here to provide the solutions you need. And at this point, I think, Nick, that we're going to be turning it over to the case that we have with MIT Media Lab.
Okay, great. Well, that's fantastic. We're very lucky and honored to have one of our great customers on the phone today. His name is Michaelis Bletzis. He runs the MIT Media Lab, and he's used a number of different Huawei products. And what we want Michaelis to do is just give you a bit of a feel for what he's doing inside of his Media Lab, what kinds of technologies he has, and why he's chosen to partner with Huawei and what solutions he's using. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Michaelis.
Unlike most of my US-based colleagues, I knew Huawei quite well from my telco space involvement. And when Huawei joined the Media Lab, I was very surprised to discover what a wide product line they had in the enterprise space. I have to admit that I wasn't aware at all about how strong Huawei was on the enterprise space, in the enterprise space. Huawei joined the lab at a very opportune time when we had just expanding into a brand new facility and we're looking to upgrade many parts of our technology infrastructure. So having dealing with a vendor who has a product line and is willing to work with you and try new things with you was a very fortunate thing for us. The Media Lab is the archetypal BYOD place in the sense that we have been supporting my I don't run the whole Media Lab. I run the Network Computing Systems group at the Media Lab, which is responsible for all the technology infrastructure that we use, that the researchers of the lab use. We had always been supporting anything that our users wanted to use. So we never had a policy about supported devices or anything like the Media Lab. Many years ago, we had something in the order of 18 operating systems in support. For us, things became actually better recently because we only have less than 10 now, including the mobile ones. So it's definitely an improvement for us. And unlike many other places, as a lab that's involved a lot into information and communication technologies, our network, our infrastructure is a lab instrument for us. It's not completely only a production device. It's something that is very fluid continuously. When it comes to using Huawei equipment, we had a few things that we wanted to move towards, one of which was a distributed core architecture. Our previous network, because of tradition, architectural constraints, was a very typical collapsed star backbone with a single central switch at the core of it, at the center of it. For many reasons, we would like to move away from that architecture, and we're working with Huawei switches and looking on how to best implement a distributed core architecture. We have also worked a lot. We are getting more and more into various types of video conferencing, and we use there in many of our experiments Huawei telepresence equipment. And last but not least, and I'm saying that because I was very much impressed by the quality of the product, we are using some of their storage products in a sun environment. And overall, if I had to summarize my experience with them, was that I was first pleasantly surprised and be enabled because there is a lot of breadth in the company, and the pace of innovation that comes out of Huawei is quite impressive. So I think that they deserve a very serious look. And with that, I will end. Thank you very much.
Michaelis, thank you so much. I'm sharing some of your thoughts and experiences on how you've worked with Huawei in the past, and I think that's great. What we're going to do now is go ahead and open up the floor for questions. And we do have a number of questions that came in, so we're going to go ahead and ask those. I think we have at least one for Michaelis I see here and a couple for Thomas, so we'll go ahead and tee it off with the first question. I think this one could be for Thomas, and this one is, how do I schedule a demo and or how can I get follow-up if I have more questions about specific products?
Sure, Nick, absolutely. Let me pop that up on a slide here if you folks want to take notes here. I do have a couple of contact points. I have a telephone number that I've got on the screen, as well as an email, and this is a general inquiry where we're monitoring this 24/7, and we can certainly parse it off to the responsible party. But if you'd like to schedule a demo, which would certainly please us, and follow up with more questions, please contact us at one of these 2 points, and we'll be sure to turn an answer around to you.
Excellent. Michaelis, I think this one is for you, and it says, question for Michaelis, I have heard that the Huawei pricing looks very attractive, but what can you tell us about your experience with the quality of the products?
It seems to me that the value for money is very good. I haven't been using Huawei products for a very long time, so you have to ask me that question a few years down the road. You have to look at the total cost of ownership. But what I can say is that when I received my products, first of all, I was impressed because they seemed a lot more like telco products, just from the way they are built and engineered. And even the way they are packaged. I can't comment yet on the long-term quality or the long-term cost of ownership again, but my initial impressions are, I was impressed. I have to say that I was impressed. I can't obviously quote specific things, but I was very pleasantly surprised. That's what I have to say. And it looked to me that's what I can say for sure.
Okay, hey, that's great. We appreciate it. Here's another one. This could be more for Thomas. It says, what is the best way to purchase Huawei products and services?
Sure, that's a question that we get quite a bit. And so to net it out, we have a master distribution agreement with Synnex, which is our distributor that we signed last year. And many, many VARs signed up to help service your individual needs. Without getting into details for every single area of the country, perhaps it would be best if you can email us at the email I'm showing on the screen, and we'd be glad to get information back to you on what particular VAR you ought to be talking to, and we'll have someone contact you directly about that.
Okay, that's great. And then the next one is coming from one of our partners, one of the VARs that sell Huawei, and says, do I have to be certified in order to sell Huawei products? And if I'm not yet certified, does Huawei have help with services?
So no, you do not have to be certified in order to sell, but at the end of the day, it's a two-way relationship, and if you are certified, you get additional benefits from certainly a monetary and a standing perspective. We do have a multi-tier, gold, silver, bronze type plan that we can give you full details on in case you're interested. Your contact name for all of this will depend upon where you're located. So again, to say it a third time, if you can contact us either at that phone number above or the email address, we'll be glad to get you all those details.
Okay, great. Here's a question from Brad, and what he's saying is, I have an older Nortel switching platform. Does Huawei have a migration plan to help me move off older infrastructure and move on to UC&C, including TP?
Yes, so the migration issue is the one that occurs across technologies and involves both financial elements, planning elements, execution elements, et cetera. And so, yeah, we'd like to understand what your particular solution is right now and the details of that, and look to where you're going with your network and your technologies. And so by engaging with us on a demo perspective or a migration plan, there's no problem with that.
Okay. Here's one about BYOD. It says, I need to fully support BYOD. Can Huawei provide me an end-to-end solution and help me get there?
So as a matter of fact, the answer, as I indicated before, is absolutely yes. At the just concluded RSA conference, that's a security conference in San Francisco, as a matter of fact, we were showcasing our BYOD solution. And again, it involves elements of end-to-end network security, mobile device security, mobile device management, and secure mobile development environment. And so yes, we play in all those areas and have a solution for each one of those four main columns, and we'd be glad to provide you any and all details you need to take you to the next step on the BYOD side. But again, we were extremely excited with the show, had a lot of great attendance, and looking for an even larger presence, quite frankly, next year at the RSA show. So the question you have is quite timely.
Okay, well, I'm glad that's the case because we have another BYOD question. And this one says, what does Huawei do to help separate the personal from the private or school data in a BYOD environment?
So we have what's called the AnyOffice application that resides actually upon the device. And when you open that up, you have your personal applications separated from your education applications, if you would. And so you can work as long as you want to on those applications. But once you go ahead and you close those apps and retire the device, right? That instance is then wiped. So what we're not doing is separating university or K through 12 sensitive data and taking it off campus where it shouldn't be, or into a different environment where it shouldn't be. This concept, again, is called the Enterprise Sandbox, or the University Sandbox, and exists within the AnyOffice application that we'd be glad to demo for you.
Excellent. And I think we only have one more question. So, and this one I think is a really good question to wrap it up with. And the question is, Huawei sounds like it has a very impressive portfolio, similar to what I'm seeing from other large vendors, such as the Cisco's, HP's, IBM's, etc. How is Huawei different, and why should I choose Huawei versus some of these other vendors that I might have been doing business with? Isn't it risky and expensive to change vendors?
So, excellent point, one I get a lot. I would actually state that it's also risky, potentially, to not investigate new opportunities that might bring down my TCO and, in essence, the cost of running my network, and might lock me out of certain opportunities. As I've mentioned, Huawei is unique in that we play in three spaces: service provider, enterprise, and consumer, unlike our competition, in that we uniquely bring that value, our legacy, to each and every new engagement that we have. But I definitely understand that vendor decisions are made over a long course of a matter of years and can take time and risk to unwind. And so what I might suggest is pick a project that you'd like of a certain time frame, a doable time frame, if you would, a switch migration you're doing, a telephony implementation in a particular area of the campus. Contact us and engage us in that particular project. Let us know what you're trying to achieve, and put us to the test on that project and help us earn that business and migrate that to the rest of the campus. That is, in essence, what I would do, is take a bite-sized chunk, if you would, contact Huawei, make us aware of what you're trying to achieve, and I do believe you'll find us incredibly responsive and able to execute on those types of projects. Thanks.
Excellent. Excellent answer. Well, look, on behalf of Huawei USA, I would like to give a huge thank you to Thomas for the job he did, and also for Michaelis for taking time out of his very busy day to come and give us some perspectives of the end user environment. Hopefully this session gave you a great overview of Huawei's position in the education space and understanding what we're doing to really help educational institutions be able to get the most value out of their IT spend and to be able to have a great portfolio of products that cover the gamut of what many of you need from an IT infrastructure perspective. So I want you to be on the lookout for further webinars. We'll be doing them frequently over the coming months. If you have input on what you'd like to see for a future webinar, please let us know. We definitely are interested in delivering subjects and topics that you're interested in. So thanks again for everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we appreciate you taking time to share some sessions with us here at Huawei.